The observer effect. It's the quantum principle that everyone talks about. The idea that consciousness collapses reality from infinite possibilities into a single outcome. But what if I told you that's not the real key to understanding how reality works? What if the observer effect is just the surface layer, the entry point to something far more profound? Welcome to Quantum Horison, where we dive deeper than surface-level manifestation and explore the hidden mechanics of reality itself. And if you're ready to discover what lies beneath the obvious, hit that subscribe button now, because this channel is where we uncover the quantum truths that change everything. Here's what nobody wants to admit. The observer effect has become the spiritual equivalent of a shiny object. Everyone's obsessed with it because it sounds mystical, because it gives consciousness a starring role in the universe. But while you've been focused on observing, something else has been operating in the background. Something that makes the observer effect look elementary. I'm talking about quantum entanglement at the consciousness level. Not the entanglement between particles that Einstein called spooky action at a distance. I'm talking about the hidden web of connection that exists between your awareness and the fabric of reality itself. This is the real quantum key, and it's been hiding in plain sight. Think about it this way. The observer effect suggests that you collapse possibilities into reality through observation. But what if reality is already entangled with your potential to observe it? What if the collapse isn't happening because you're watching, but because you're already connected to what you're about to experience before you even know it exists? This isn't just theory. This is about understanding why some people seem to effortlessly attract synchronicities, while others struggle with basic manifestation. It's about why certain individuals can sense opportunities before they appear, why they seem to live in a flow state where reality bends around them. They're not better observers. They're better at recognizing their quantum entanglement with possibility itself. Let me break this down. Traditional quantum mechanics tells us that when we observe a quantum system, we force it to choose a definite state from all its possible states. The wave function collapses. Reality crystallizes. But that model assumes separation between observer and observed. It assumes you're standing outside reality, looking in, making choices about what becomes real. But what if that's backwards? What if you're not separate from the quantum field? What if your consciousness is already woven into the fabric of every possibility that exists? This changes everything about how reality works. When you understand quantum entanglement at the consciousness level, you realize that you're not collapsing possibilities from the outside. You're already inside every possibility, connected to every potential outcome before it manifests. The question isn't whether you can observe reality into existence. The question is which version of reality you're already entangled with. This is where most people get stuck. They try to use the observer effect like a tool, like something they can control. They meditate, they visualize, they focus their attention, thinking that conscious observation is enough to shape their experience. But they're missing the deeper layer. They're missing the fact that their consciousness is already quantum entangled with every possible version of their life. Here's the shift that changes everything. Instead of trying to observe your way into a new reality, you need to recognize which reality you're already connected to. Instead of forcing the wave function to collapse, you need to feel into the quantum entanglement that's already there, waiting for you to acknowledge it. This is why some manifestations feel effortless, while others feel impossible. The effortless ones aren't happening because you observed them into existence. They're happening because you're already quantum entangled with that possibility. Your consciousness and that potential outcome are already connected at the deepest level. You're just becoming aware of a connection that was always there. But the impossible ones, those are the realities you're not entangled with. No amount of observation, visualization, or conscious intention will force a connection that doesn't exist at the quantum level. This is why trying harder often makes manifestation more difficult. You're fighting against the natural entanglement patterns of your consciousness. Now, Before you think this means you're stuck with whatever you're already connected to, let me tell you something that will blow your mind. Quantum entanglement isn't fixed. It's dynamic. It shifts and evolves based on your deepest identity, your core vibration, your fundamental way of being in the world. This is where the real work begins. Not the work of observing or focusing or visualizing. The work of recognizing who you are at the quantum level. The work of identifying which version of yourself you're most deeply entangled with. Because that version determines which possibilities are available to you, which realities you can access, which timelines you can step into. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who's trying to manifest financial abundance but keeps struggling. Using the observer effect model, they would focus more intently, visualize more clearly, observe their desire more precisely. But what if the real issue is that their consciousness is quantum entangled with a version of themselves that finds safety in scarcity? What if abundance feels threatening to their core identity? In that case, no amount of observation will work because they're not entangled with abundance at the quantum level. They're entangled with the safety of limitation. Their consciousness and scarcity are already connected before they even think about money. The observer effect can't override quantum entanglement. But here's the incredible part. Once you understand this, once you recognize which version of yourself you're entangled with, you can begin to shift that entanglement, not through force, not through willpower, but through identity transformation at the deepest level. This is what quantum Horison is really about. We're not just talking about manifestation techniques or consciousness tricks. We're exploring the fundamental quantum architecture of how awareness and reality are interconnected. We're going beyond the surface level spiritual concepts to understand the actual mechanics of how your identity shapes your quantum entanglement patterns. And if this is resonating, if you're starting to see that there's something deeper than the observer effect, leave a comment below. Tell us about a time when something manifested effortlessly in your life, when it felt like reality just organized itself around you. Because I guarantee that wasn't about observation, that was about quantum entanglement. The observer effect makes consciousness feel powerful, like you're the director of your reality. But quantum entanglement reveals something even more profound. You're not directing reality from the outside. You're already inside every possibility, connected to every potential future, entangled with every version of yourself that could exist. The question isn't, how do I observe my way into a new life? The question is, which version of myself am I already connected to? And how do I recognize that connection? How do I feel into the quantum entanglement that's already there? How do I identify which possibilities I'm naturally wired for and which ones require a fundamental shift in who I am? This is the hidden quantum that nobody talks about. This is the key that makes the observer effect look like a beginner's tool. Because when you understand quantum entanglement at the consciousness level, you realize that reality isn't responding to your observations. Reality is already connected to who you are at the deepest level. And who you are at that level determines everything. It determines which synchronicities appear, which opportunities emerge, which people you attract, which circumstances align. Your quantum entanglement patterns are the invisible architecture that shapes your entire experience of life. But here's where it gets even more interesting. And this is what we'll explore in the next part of this series. Most people think quantum entanglement happens between particles separated by vast distances. But what if the most important entanglement is happening right inside your consciousness? What if every thought, every emotion, every identity pattern you carry is already entangled with specific versions of your future? This is where quantum mechanics meets consciousness in a way that will completely rewrite how you understand reality creation. Because the hidden quantum isn't about particles in a lab. It's about the invisible threads connecting your deepest self to the experiences that are magnetically drawn to you. Let me show you something that will shift everything you think you know about how consciousness works. Traditional spiritual teaching tells you to raise your vibration, align your frequency, match the energy of what you want. But what if matching isn't the real mechanism? What if your consciousness is already pre-entangled with certain outcomes based on patterns you can't even see? Think about the people in your life who seem to live in perpetual flow. Opportunities find them. The right people show up at the perfect moment. Doors open without them even knocking. You might think they're better manifestors, more positive thinkers, stronger observers of reality. But here's what's really happening. Their consciousness is quantum entangled with possibility itself. This isn't luck. This isn't privilege. This is quantum entanglement operating at the level of identity. Their deepest sense of self is connected to expansion, to growth, to the unexpected gifts that reality can offer. That entanglement exists before they even know what they want. It's wired into their fundamental way of being. Now contrast that with someone who struggles, who feels like they're pushing against life, who works twice as hard for half the results. Same universe, same quantum field, same infinite possibilities available. But their consciousness is entangled with different patterns. Struggle, resistance, the need to prove themselves, the fear that life is hard and resources are limited. Here's the part that most people miss. These entanglement patterns aren't conscious choices. They're not surface-level beliefs you can affirmation your way out of. They're quantum-level connections that were formed through experience, through conditioning, through the deepest stories you tell yourself about how reality works. And this is why the observer effect feels so limited when you really start working with it. You can observe abundance all you want, but if your consciousness is quantum entangled with scarcity at the deepest level, observation alone won't shift that connection. The entanglement is deeper than thought. It's deeper than intention. It's woven into your energetic DNA. But here's where this gets revolutionary. Quantum entanglement isn't permanent. It's not a life sentence. These connections can shift, but not through the methods most people are trying. Not through willpower or positive thinking or forcing yourself to feel different. Quantum entanglement shifts through identity transformation at the core level. Let me walk you through how this actually works. Your consciousness exists in what I call an entanglement field. This field contains every possible version of you, every potential timeline, every outcome you could experience, but you're not equally connected to all of them. Your entanglement patterns create stronger connections to some possibilities and weaker connections to others. These patterns form through repetition, through emotional intensity, through the stories you've lived, and the identities you've embodied. Every time you react to life from fear, you strengthen your entanglement with fearful outcomes. Every time you approach challenges from curiosity instead of resistance, you deepen your connection to expansive possibilities. The observer effect suggests you can consciously choose which reality to collapse into existence. But quantum entanglement reveals that some realities are already so strongly connected to you that they're practically inevitable, while others are so weakly entangled that no amount of observation will bring them closer. This is why manifestation feels inconsistent for most people. Sometimes it works effortlessly, sometimes it doesn't work at all. They think it's about technique or belief or worthiness. But it's actually about which possibilities they're already quantum entangled with, versus which ones they're trying to force into existence from a place of disconnection. Here at Quantum Horison, we're not interested in surface-level techniques. We're exploring the fundamental architecture of how consciousness and reality are woven together. And if you're ready to go beyond basic manifestation and understand the quantum mechanics of identity itself, make sure you're subscribed because we're just getting started. Now let me show you something that will completely change how you approach reality creation. There's a way to actually feel your quantum entanglement patterns. Not think about them, not analyze them, but actually sense the invisible threads connecting your consciousness to different possibilities. Close your eyes for a moment. Think about something you want to create in your life. Feel into that desire. Now, instead of trying to visualize it or observe it into existence, Ask yourself this question. Does this feel like something I'm trying to pull toward me? Or does it feel like something I'm already connected to? If it feels like pulling, like effort, like you're reaching across a gap to grab something that's separate from you, that's a sign of weak quantum entanglement. You might be able to manifest it eventually, but it will require significant identity shifts first. You'll need to become the version of yourself that's naturally entangled with that outcome. But if it feels like recognition, like remembering, like acknowledging something that's already there, waiting for you to notice it, that's strong quantum entanglement. That possibility is already woven into your consciousness. You're not creating it from scratch. You're allowing what's already connected to become visible in your experience. This is the hidden quantum that changes everything. When you understand entanglement at the consciousness level, you stop trying to force reality to respond to your observations. Instead, you begin to recognize which realities you're already connected to and which ones require a fundamental shift in who you are. Most people approach manifestation like they're shopping in a catalog, picking what they want and placing an order with the universe. But quantum entanglement reveals that you're not shopping from the outside. You're already inside the store, already connected to specific items, already entangled with certain possibilities based on who you are at the deepest level. This is why identity work is so crucial. This is why surface-level techniques often fail. This is why some people seem to live charmed lives while others struggle with basic abundance. It's not about luck or worthiness or cosmic favoritism. It's about quantum entanglement patterns that exist beneath conscious awareness. And here's what gets really interesting. These patterns aren't just individual, they're also collective. Your consciousness doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a larger entanglement web that includes every other conscious being, every cultural pattern, every collective belief system. This means your personal quantum entanglements are influenced by the entanglement patterns of your family, your community, your culture, your species. Some possibilities feel easier to access because they're supported by collective entanglement. Others feel nearly impossible because they go against the grain of mass consciousness. But here's the empowering truth. Individual consciousness can shift collective entanglement patterns. When someone breaks free from limiting patterns and embodies a new possibility, they create new pathways in the quantum field that others can follow. They become what I call entanglement pioneers, blazing trails through previously unexplored territories of human potential. This is happening right now, in this moment, as you read these words. Your consciousness is shifting its entanglement patterns simply by being exposed to these concepts. You're beginning to recognize connections that were always there, but that you couldn't see before. You're starting to sense which possibilities you're already wired for and which ones require deeper transformation. And in the comments below, I want you to share something. Think about an area of your life where things flow easily, where you seem naturally lucky or gifted. That's not talent. That's quantum entanglement. Your consciousness is already connected to success in that area. Now, think about an area where you struggle, where you feel like you're swimming upstream. Share both, because understanding your entanglement patterns is the first step to consciously evolving them. The observer effect gave consciousness a role in reality creation. But quantum entanglement reveals that consciousness doesn't just influence reality. Consciousness is already woven into the fabric of every possible reality, already connected to every potential outcome, already entangled with every version of the future that could unfold. The question isn't whether you can observe your way into a new life. The question is which version of yourself you're most deeply entangled with, and whether that version can access the experiences you're calling in. Because if there's a mismatch, if your desires are disconnected from your deepest identity patterns, no amount of observation will bridge that gap. But when your consciousness and your desires are quantum entangled, when who you are at the core level is naturally connected to what you want to experience, manifestation becomes inevitable. Not because you're forcing reality to comply, but because you are allowing what's already connected to become visible. This is the hidden quantum that transforms everything. This is the key that makes the observer effect look like kindergarten consciousness work. And this is just the beginning of what we'll explore together here at Quantum Horison. Because once you understand quantum entanglement at the consciousness level, once you can feel these invisible connections and consciously evolve your entanglement patterns, you realize that reality isn't something that happens to you. Reality is something you're already inside of, already connected to, already entangled with at every possible level. So there you have it. The observer effect isn't the master key to reality creation. It's quantum entanglement at the consciousness level that determines which possibilities you can access, which timelines you can step into, which version of your life becomes inevitable. Your awareness isn't collapsing waves from the outside. You're already inside every possibility, already connected to specific outcomes through invisible threads that exist deeper than thought, deeper than intention, woven into the very fabric of who you are. The real work isn't learning to observe better. It's recognizing which reality you're already entangled with and consciously evolving those connections. That's the hidden quantum. That's what changes everything.